Thoughts or questions or comments? Yes, Dale.
Would you be willing and able to say a little bit more about his relationship with Wishart? And I presume he was a bodyguard for Wishart because he was fearful of being attacked. But then how did Wishart, it sounds to me like Wishart realized his time was up and Knox, he told Knox to run for it?
Yes.
Or, okay.
Told Knox to leave. He knew that arrest was coming and he reckoned Knox would leave.
Okay, so Knox at the time was already reformed?
Already reformed.
Yeah, okay.
Skilled in the sword of the Spirit and the other sword.
Okay.
And a bodyguard can be useful. We once had a lecture in Limerick and we were afraid of some opposition from the homosexuals. So I asked my brother Douglas to come down to Limerick with us, bigger guy and stronger. It'd be useful. We didn't bring a broadsword though. Not even a boomerang. I mean, but they were very close. Like Knox would have said of Wishart that he was a spiritual father.
Okay.
Great benefit. He listened to his preaching. He derived from him courage, the need for a full frontal assault on the Church of Rome, and that burning conviction that martyrdom could well await him. Yeah. John?
You had a slide that showed, was it the Scottish Confession? Had a date of 16 or 1580. You said it was 1560.
That's a good point. This points up the hazards of writing a speech and then reworking it. And on the day before you go to Scotland, making a list of slides for your wife. When you've got to pack and organise things for a conference and say, Mary, could you get me these slides? So she goes online and then sees one for the Scotch Confession and does a Google search for pictures or whatever and then sees one. And we were a bit short in time and I didn't proofread it. So 1560 is the right date, but that copy that Mary got a picture of was printed in 1580. You said, Mary and I do a lot of proofreading for the Column of Foreign News, for BRJ, for BRF books, but it was late. That's our excuse. It was late on Friday night, and we didn't proof that. We didn't spot it, but John, you're a businessman, you spot these things. You've got overseas staff. Yeah. Julian?
Who was responsible for the death of these two men by burning at the stake, apart from the prelates of the church at that time? Who was the king of Scotland?
My condition earlier, I can't answer that one, but it wouldn't be a terribly satisfactory answer. What I should have said in the condition is that we not only, instead of we get the phone a friend one, we can ask somebody tomorrow. And that question really is a Charlie Webster question. Not tomorrow, Wednesday. Charlie Webster will give you the full score, and it'll be much more fuller and
Just a comment as well. It's interesting that they knew exactly where that bullet passed through, when they tried to shoot him, and yet they don't know which house he was in Edinburgh. It just seems strange.
Yes, I imagine it was remarked at the time that the bullet went through the chair and hit the chandelier, so that was passed on and recorded, but then nobody wrote down what house he lived at. So it was some chandelier in some house. Kristen?
What were sort of like the approximate age? Like how old was John Knox when he was a priest and then was converted to reform faith and so forth in his life? Because it kind of gives the general spectrum, but I wasn't sure age-wise.
Okay. Now, Kristen, there are two ways, of course, to speak about Knox. One would be the chronological one. And I chose not to do it that way. I chose to make it more episodal, geographical. Knox was born in 1514. And what was the date you wanted when he got married?
Like, when he was a priest and then when he converted and like when he was, we were talking about the bodyguard and stuff.
He embraced the Protestant Reformation when he was about 32. And what other dates did you like?
I was just curious because you said he was a bodyguard and all of that, and I just wondered, I figured he had pretty young and fit at that point, so I didn't know how long he was a priest before he was became reformed and then became a Bible.
Okay, so he embraces the Reformation when he's about 32, and I think at 32, 33, 34, 38, 40, you know, I think a man at that stage can still be pretty fit, as long as he's not a minister and spends all day at a desk. So he was still up for it. Anyway, George Wishart knew his man, and he knew that little John Knox could serve. Yep. Sorry, Chris, not every answer is terribly good, but that's all you're getting. Unless there's anybody wanting to add anything to that?
He was a fearless man because on his plinth in Glasgow, which is at the top of the Acropolis, it says he neither feared dag nor dagger. And a dag is a bit bigger than a dagger.
Very good. Yep. Christina?
How did he learn to sword fight?
How did he learn the sword fight? How did he learn?
Just in between doing priest everything else.
Playing soccer.
How did he learn? I'm not too sure. I will say this, that at the time of the Scottish Reformation, this is historical fact, this isn't anything pejorative, it was said that Scotland, and not just the Highlands, but even the Lowlands, was the most barbarous part of Western Europe. The clans were quite strong even for some time after the Reformation. And in a society like that, martial arts are more learned than in a society like ours, let's say. In the English Reformation, you had even Hugh Latimer insisting that among the various useful skills taught to Englishmen was the use of the bow. So you're a bit closer to nature, you need to catch your dinner, there are more animals that could do you harm, there are clans that aren't always on the friendliest of terms, so martial arts are higher up there. And presumably when Knox got that task, he pulled the old broadsword out or borrowed one from his friend and brushed up a little. I think that's a reasonable answer. Yeah. Yeah. Any other thoughts or questions? Marco?
One of his main work is a book of predestinations.
Yes.
And okay, now Augustine was very important for Luther and Calvin in their development.
Yes.
What about John Knox?
What about John Knox and Augustine? I'm turning to my notes here, Marco, to remind myself. Yes, John Knox read Augustine and quoted him repeatedly, stating that he was the greatest of the church fathers, and you can guess which works Knox quoted from Augustine: his Pelagian, anti-Pelagian, and semi-Pelagian writings. He also refers to Luther's great work on the bondage of the will, and Calvin's opposition to Pigius and Georgius. I think we have it in the book table. And Calvin's Calvinism. Marco's studying Augustine, he's doing some postgrad work on it, so that explains that question. Sam?
Right. I was just wondering what age he was as a galley slave.
Galley slave, okay. You'll never guess what I'm paging to for that sort of question. Or maybe you will. What do you think I'm paging to? The Wikipedia article, yes. See, it's laid out chronologically. So, while he was a galley slave, he was 33, 34, 35. A young man. I'm beginning to think now that I've done my bit. Sorry, Mary? Yes, and we're going to have tea. So, before we go, we should have a word of prayer. Our Father in heaven, we thank Thee for this Lord's Day, for the great grace that gives us fellowship together in Jesus Christ, and for the lively preaching of the Word we heard earlier. We thank Thee, Lord, for Thy mercies to us in Jesus Christ, including also food and drink, and a cup of tea and refreshment. Bless our remaining time together. Give us good sleep tonight. Keep us safe in our journeys to Edinburgh. For Jesus' sake, amen.